Hello, dear friends. Welcome to the live broadcast with the Russian Squash Federation. My name is Alexander.
My name is Аюна. Good evening, everybody. Today we have a special guest in our live broadcast. You all know his voice. He's not only a talented squash player, but he's the lead commentator on PSA Squash TV. Please welcome Joey Barrington. Joey, hello. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. Sorry, I've managed to get here on time. Fantastic to be able to do something with you guys. I've been watching the development of the Russian squash in this last phase, particularly on social media and everywhere else, and it's fascinating and it's very exciting. Good for the sport. Can't wait.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think that we will talk about this a little bit later, about our development. And our first question for you will be about, of course, the World Championship in Chicago. How did you like the tournament?
It was an interesting one, obviously, because there was so much riding on. All the focus was kind of on Muhammad Al-Shabagi, really. And then what happened in the final, the men's final and also the women's final, was absolutely brilliant. It was some of the best squash I've seen for a long, long time, and it was really needed after such a tough time with the pandemic and everything. But it wasn't on the cards, I would say, for Ali Farag to respond the way he did in the final for the men. And that comeback was some of the best squash I've ever seen him play, actually. So that was brilliant for the top of the game. But also in the women's, Nour El Shabini, who's obviously dominated so much, but she's had a lot of problems with her body. And her body was really in great shape for this event. And she showed what she was about. But again, Gohar's hotel. So in a way, in the men and women, we've got two players at the moment, 1 and 2 in the world, who are really kind of close to each other, and that's exciting. We need that kind of rivalry in both the women's and the men's.
Oh, and the tournament was in Chicago, right? Chicago is the city which is famous with its jazz blues history. Have you had a possibility maybe between the games, between the matches, to go somewhere to enjoy jazz music in Chicago?
The problem we had was, and this is going on in all the tournaments, is we're in bubbles. We're in very strict bubbles because of the COVID-19. So sadly, we couldn't go to the places we'd like to go. When we do go to Chicago in the past, it's always been in the winter time. So it's freezing, absolutely freezing. And we're kind of rushing from building to building. So this time it was beautiful sunshine outside. And the city is a beautiful city in the summer. And we couldn't really go anywhere. So it was tough in that respect. Yeah, it was very tough to
well, we hope next time. We hope next time it will be no COVID and you can use and visit maybe some these places.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
How about maybe new surprises on this tournament? Maybe some new names. Maybe you saw someone who is really progressed.
It's going. I'll talk about the women's to start with. What's exciting about the women's is that you've got a crop of players that are at the top of the game, like I said, with the Egyptian girls, who are playing the best squash that's ever been seen on the women's tour. You know, you can't compare it. It's another level to all the great champions of the women's game in the past. For the men, you would question that, to say that the level is extremely high, but maybe not as high. So the women's game, the focus is huge for us and for all the people following the game. And then you have a crop of players who are chasing and really moving inside the top 20, with the Olivia Fichter, who is certainly coming to life, and she's one to watch even more in the tournaments. Tina Gillis, obviously Naila Gillis is being quite consistent. And then a couple of the English girls, Lucy Tamel's coming through. So there is a good chasing group of younger girls that are coming in. The women's tour is looking very exciting for those reasons. The men's, it's quite an aged tour. There's still a few old players, even from my generation, that are still bashing around and playing great squash. But it's a little bit of a worry for me with the men's that we haven't got as many players coming through. There are, of course, Egyptian players with Mustafa Rasul who couldn't play in Chicago. And he's obviously playing the best squash of any up-and-coming player at the moment. He's now inside the top 10. But in terms of the English, there's nobody from England that I would feel is going to fill the footsteps of James Willstrop, Nick Matthew, and all those terrific players. And that's the first time that's ever happened for us as a country in squash. The Australians, sadly, nothing. It's a bit worrying. So it's down to some of you, the Eastern European countries, to start producing some players.
We have a lot of them now coming.
Yeah, we have seen one Eastern European player from Latvia, Ineta Mackevičiūtė, but it was in women's draw. She was in the first round. And our neighbors from Finland, Emilia Soini, went through the second round and she lost only to Nur El-Shabini. So, yes, we will really hope that a few years later we will get some good Russian, of Ukrainian, of Belarusian names in the tour.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. I had quite a funny story just quickly about being in Finland. I was playing a tournament in Finland and I was in Helsinki and I nearly got on I did actually get on the wrong train, but I managed to get off before it left. But I was going to be disappearing off to St. Petersburg and I was meant to be going to Mikkeli in Finland. So I could have, I've never visited there, so I could have just disappeared off into Russia and not played the tournament. I was going to play in Finland.
So okay,
so if we talk about men's tour in this tournament, let's just take a look back at the match with one of the most talented, in my opinion, players in the tour. He also was once in Russia, Miguel Angel Rodriguez. He's really super with physical condition and he makes a lot of dives, but still, in your opinion, what was wrong with his game against Adi Farag? His court coverage is really good, but maybe it was a lot of wrong shot selections, or maybe he dived too much. I don't know.
What the situation is that Miguel is been back in Colombia, obviously, for the whole of the pandemic. He hasn't been able to play the tournaments and have the training partners that he would have if the world was, pre 2020, before the COVID hit. So he's been training a bit at home, but he's not been able to play the matches and have the tournament play. And even though he's massively experienced, this is a really important factor for these players to have that. Going back to the comparison, the Egyptian players, they're in Cairo or Alexandria, they're playing each other all the time, and they have these wonderful matches. Paul Cole also had a bit of a situation where he couldn't play really anyone at all. He was based in Holland. So the lockdown has had that big effect, a negative effect on those type of players. So unfortunately, Miguel is now moving on in age. He still looks great and everything else and stuff, but he's moving on in age and his body's done a lot of hard work on the court, and he needs to play a different type of game if he's going to survive in the rankings. He needs to be a bit more tactical and precise. He can't just rely on his physical movement because he's starting to lose that now as he gets a bit older, but he's also had the lack of match play as well.
And we also have seen one more 5-game thriller during the tournament. It was the game between Paul Cole and Karim Abdel-Gawad, and Paul was 2-love down, if I remember right. And actually, we expected Karim to win. What was happening, from your opinion?
Well, Karim, just to give you some background on Karim Abdel-Gawad, he has a very chronic injury with his heel. He in the area of his heel where you've got a fat pad, you're cushioning in your own heel. He's actually disintegrated that by huge amounts of when he's lunging in, going in on his heel very heavily on his front leg, particularly in the front right hand corner, and it happens, it's like a 1 in a million injury. He's actually completely disintegrated the fat pad, and there's nothing they can do to try to regrow anything. So at the moment, he's trying to use cushioning and painkillers. There's nothing he can actually do to try and stop it. He has to try and change his movement a little bit as well, which is going to be tough. And so for him, he didn't have the extra fitness and strength because he hasn't been able to train and play to hold off Paul Cole, who obviously had a fantastic comeback and was superb. And, you know, I'd like to mention him in the men's game. He's been doing a very consistent, he's had a very, very consistent run, and he deserves to be at 4 in the world where he is at the moment. And he's great for the game, obviously.
And the Paul Cole has a nickname, the Superman. And the question is, I was always wondering, who gives these nicknames to the squash players? Maybe you know, Paul Cole, the Superman, Sarah Jane Perry, the Gladiator, and Gregory Gautier, the French general. Yes, it's obvious, the general out from France.
I do the nicknames. That was me. So I come up with the nicknames. Oh. It took me a little bit longer with the women because we had, you know, you have to be careful in this day and age not to offend people. But the way the nicknames come in, I brought it in very early. So the earliest nicknames were the Wolf and the Maestro and the Marksman. These were obviously Greg, the French general. So they were coming in very early on in Squash TV. It was something I wanted to do for the young fans watching. As a growing up watching sport, always loved to hear nicknames and backgrounds of players because it creates a mystery and a, you know, like a kind of superhero type situation. So the nicknames were kind of targeted for the younger fans, but it's taken off with everyone. And the players, they really enjoy it and they use it for their own marketing. So they have it written on their T-shirts, they have symbols, you know, so that was a big part of what I wanted to do when I started with Squash TV. And I've nearly got there. There's a few more of the younger lady players coming up that I need to get names for, but we're pretty much sorted. And the way I feel, the way it comes to me is to do with the way they look, their personality, their geographical area of the world they come from, and obviously, you know, possibly something to do with their name sometimes, but yeah, so there you go.
So if you're talking about the PSA Squash TV, while it was the World Championship in Chicago, we also have a very big tournament in Russia, and it was called the Moscow Heat. And maybe all the subscribers of PSA Squash TV have chance to watch it on our YouTube channel. And now we want to introduce our online broadcast. Maybe you will say a few words about it. And let's watch a short video.
5-9 минут, 5-5 это вообще что-то с чем-то. Я думаю, что нас ждет матч, который будет идти там минимум час. Поэтому подготовьте попкорн, чай, не знаю, что еще. И...
Открывайте холодильник, вы выбираете все, потому что это надолго.
И воду легенды Байкала.
Спасибо нашим партнерам.
Да, спасибо нашим партнерам. Мы вчера уже в эфире утоляли жажду, и сегодня тоже, да, в такую жару только вода. Потом вечером можно безалкогольное пиво в хамовнике.
Да, насколько же актуально название этого турнира «Московская жара». На самом деле, ребята постарались в клубе, они добавили здесь кондиционирование, поэтому в 2 раза больше, поэтому все-таки стало гораздо комфортнее играть. И опять ошибаюсь сейчас, Влад.
Много ошибок.
Что здесь?
Ошибок. Очень, мне кажется, близко подошел к мячу. Сейчас повтор нам показали. Казалось, как будто рука была очень сильно прижата к корпусу, и было тяжело в этот момент попасть. 6-6, ребята идут вровень, да, очко в очко, то есть близко очень. И
я заметил, что практически все ошибки на нижней линии, почти все.
Это именно момент атаки. Сейчас очень хороший дроп, закрытый, да, было ощущение, что он сыграет драйв. Да. Очень хорошо опустил, очень хорошо стал обрезать на самом деле Влад. У него раньше за последние, может быть, 2 года очень сильно меняется игра. То есть, если раньше это был стиль, он брал чисто физикой, да, то есть у него потрясающая физика, и он многих соперников просто мог перебегать. То сейчас они явно заработали финиш скилл, да, то есть он очень хорошо стал забивать, очень хорошо рвет темп, и действительно игра немножко поменялась. То есть, если раньше он брал только физикой, то сейчас действительно мы видим преобразование Влада. И вот сейчас очередная ошибка Макара спереди.
Okay.
So how do you like our broadcast? I understand that you haven't understood a word, but maybe you can give a professional advice. Should I talk less or other way around to talk more?
No, I know. I mean, I know what "da" means. I mean, that means yes. So I heard that a few times in the broadcast. But it's great to see the level obviously improving with the players that you've got there, and then in the broadcast point of view, to have a coach or to have somebody that like yourself that understands the game is really, really important. In sport, you see more and more people that have actually played the sport doing broadcasts, so they're using their skills to then become TV rather than TV people then doing a sports broadcast. It's much more interesting to have the experience as a player or a coach to talk about it. I would say that there's a lot of talking going on, which I'm also guilty of doing that when broadcasting and in commentary. But the guys physically look. It's a short video, so obviously I can't see the whole match. But the guys physically look strong and in very, very good condition, which I wouldn't expect anything less from a strong Russian training regime. But it's good to see, these guys. I'm not 100% sure of the ages of these players. If you were able to possibly let me know the ages.
One guy is 17 years old, and the elder guy is 24. He's the Russian champion for the last 3 years, and the second guy is number 2 right now.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. So the situation you've got there, the 2 best players at the moment, and the 24-year-old is still a wonderful age, a great age to keep improving. I mean, the great thing about squash, you can be playing your best squash at the very highest level when you're in your mid-30s if you look after yourself. The 17-year-old there, he's got somebody to really look up to and to also pull him along with the experience and the strength of a grown man. When you're 17, you're still not quite developed physically. And you can see that in some of the stuff on the court, but that's just perfectly normal and natural. So, that to me is the first kind of proper level squash I've seen coming out of Russia. And that's what I'm talking about, earlier on in the broadcast, that it's exciting to see the improvements that are happening.
So our guys who were working on this broadcast, the commentators, they were really good at it, and they have even decided that they want to join the PSA Squash TV team and to work as a commentators there. So the questions are, where should they send their CV? Maybe if Squash TV is hiring, and don't you think that it's just the right time to bring new blood to the Squash TV team?
Definitely. I'm quite happy to resign Simon Park. He can. He's currently in Manchester commentating on the British Nationals, and I usually put it on when my daughter wants to go to sleep. But I would, I mean, it's the way we want to get to with Squash TV is that we have different regions that are talking in the native tongue. So, a Russian commentator broadcasting, Spanish commentators for South America and obviously the Spanish countries, and where there's a large language speaking countries to have people broadcasting. So there is an opportunity on a more serious note. There is an opportunity there. So Lee, I would write to Lee at psaworldtour.com.
Okay.
So, Johnny, tell me, please, how long have you been working as a commentator?
I started with Squash TV. So we did the pilot. I was still playing professionally for the first few years. So we did the pilot in the World Championships in Saudi in 2009. December 2009 was the pilot. The pilot went very well. We then launched officially at the Tournament of Champions in 2010.
Oh.
So I've been commentating now for 12 years.
12
I was
years.
playing. I stopped playing PSA around about kind of 2014. I didn't officially retire, but I couldn't manage doing the commentary and playing, and I was getting injured as well, which was very frustrating for me. And the TV was a wonderful opportunity to do something, within sport, within squash, and to kickstart trying to publicize the game to the worldwide audience.
And can you recall any funny stories from this commentary work? For example, funny slip-ups of something like this?
Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have 4 hours on this broadcast to talk about it, but there are... The great thing about it is that in sport, there's a lot of funny situations that happen. At the end of the day, it's not life and death. Sport is hugely crucial, but you've got to have an entertainment factor there. The names, for me, my personal thing that sets me off laughing uncontrollably is when primarily PJ, my co-commentator for a lot of the events, gets the names wrong, even though he knows these people, and he calls them a slightly different name in a serious manner, and that sets me off. So we've had a few of those, but we also had... in the US Open in Drexel, we had a massive giant mascot dragon that appeared behind us when we were live on camera broadcasting around the world, and started pulling PJ's ear. And I could see PJ wanting to possibly punch this big dragon. He was getting a bit annoyed. So I had to then diffuse the situation by kind of trying to make a bit of a joke out of it. But to me, to see, something like that happening, it's quite funny. It wouldn't have been funny if he'd have actually punched the dragon. That would have been a nightmare, because obviously we've got lots of young children watching, and you wouldn't want to do that, young children. But we do have, luckily we've never missed the match, thank goodness, which would be dreadful. We'd be fired. But we do have some great times, and sometimes, just not to give too much away, but if it does go quiet for a long period of time, it's primarily because we're laughing and we have to go off air.
So if you're talking about the PJ, we know that usually you're working with him, but sometimes you invite other players. Maybe you will talk us who is your best teammate, and if we're not talking about PJ.
Yeah, we're getting some really good variety now. So Johnny Williams, who's the next Australian international player, is a fantastic commentator. His strength is he's very into the statistics of players and results and different situations within the stats realm of squash. That's a great strength of his, and it brings something to the broadcast. Lisa Aitken only did one recently in the Black Ball in March, and she's playing full-time Scottish player. She was superb as well. But they're all very, very good commentators. Vanessa Atkinson is ex-world #1 commentator. It would be nice to have some more foreign accents that can speak very good English. I think Gregory Gaultier, the French general, might be coming in to do some commentary at some point, which would be amazing. Simon Park, I joke aside, but he's a very experienced player and has had a lot of fantastic squash in his career and seen a lot. And Lee Drew has got his strengths as well, being a very kind of coach-orientated side and the refereeing side. So we have a really solid team. There's definitely room for some more female commentators, which would be great. Lisa will look to probably do more, but we could also do with some more female commentators. But we have a nice team. Everyone gets on very well. And you need a chemistry. You need a chemistry when you're working with someone, just like in films or whatever. If there's a chemistry, then it brings a lot more life to the broadcast.
Thank you. Next year, we are holding a World Junior Team and Individual Championship in St. Petersburg, where we hope after this tournament we will get more and more Russian as well, also players in the tour. So the question is: have you had a chance to participate in such a great events when you were a kid, when you were a child, as a junior player?
Say that again. Sorry.
The Junior World Squash Championship is very important for the players, and I want to ask you if you have had a chance to participate in such a great event in your career.
I didn't play squash as a junior.
At all?
No, I didn't play squash. I played a little bit at my school, but I never compete. I played a few tournaments when I was 11 years old, and then the next tournament I played was when I was 19, nearly 20 years old at university.
So it was already, you were already a little bit old for the junior championship.
Yeah, but I mean, for the juniors that dedicate their life to, to a young age, of course, it's the pinnacle for them to play. I think there's definitely room to host a professional event while there's a junior event going on. I think that creates an amazing opportunity for the juniors to watch and be inspired right there at that time. So anyone looking to organise an event, that definitely is something that could be looked at, which would be wonderful. But yeah, for the juniors, I mean, it's, they need to have, it's the British Junior Open, which has got the longevity and the history, just like it has in the professional game, and obviously then the World Championship title. Originally, the World Junior title used to be every 2 years, and then they changed it now to every year. So when Ramya Shaw won it, he was the first person to win it twice. It was every 2 years. So he first won it when he was 16. The other players after him have been winning it, like Marwan El-Shabaghi twice, Mohammed twice, was because of, the every single year. So it just shows Ramya Shaw's achievement was even more spectacular.
Yeah, our youngest players were really happy to hear that the World Junior Championship will be held in Russia. So they have started to prepare to the World Junior Championship, maybe 2030. I don't know. So let's watch a short video with our kids. These were awesome kids, and I have heard, Joe, that your oldest son is already playing some squash. Is it right?
Yeah, sorry. My little my daughter's just. I've got my son went on the squash court when he was about 4 years of age. Sorry, just bear with me a minute. 4 years of age, he was on the squash court, and he didn't really want to hit a ball. He just wanted to bang the racket and jump up and down on it, looking to break the racket. So we're kind of looking at team sports. If he plays a bit of squash, that's amazing. But for me, I want him to experience lots of different sports like I did growing up. But just seeing the juniors playing there again, you've got it's open, please. So, just seeing the juniors now.
Yeah.
To see the girls playing there as well, which is fantastic, and also the boys as young. Again, can you tell me the ages of the players that were playing?
They are one is boys are 6, the youngest boy is 6, the oldest boy is 9, and girls are also 9-10 years old.
Yeah, I mean the girls obviously they look bigger and stronger at the moment, but girls have earlier development at that age, but. It's again, having the juniors on court at that age is the future of the game. That particular age range, to give you a bit of in England, there's a very special place in England called Pontefract, where sadly Malcolm Woolstrop, who passed away recently, has always been coaching young children from as young as 5 or 6 years of age. Again, in Russia, with all the sports, children will start very young, but I think that it works really nicely to have a varied sports, but squash helps so many other sports with soccer and all these other athletic sports. There's a nice crossover between the two, but to see them on there smiling and having fun, that's the most important thing, is that they're going on because they want to go and play. And I would say that to the youngsters is you need to want to go on and play and enjoy it, not be forced onto the court and then the door's shut and then it has to be enjoyable and they have to be excited about playing it. So the fact that you've got juniors playing as young as that age now, and is that's where it all starts. That's the future.
Yeah. So, what your experience would say about the kinds of children have the better chance to get the top, talented or maybe hard work ones?
Bit of both. You need a bit of both. You need, there's so many different. The one thing I'd say about squash that makes it so unique to a lot of other sports is that it involves so many different attributes. So you can be talented physically and not so much with hand-eye coordination. So a prime example, just to make it clearer, say somebody like Paul Cole is very talented physically, and then Kareem Abdul-Gawad is very talented with hand-eye coordination and skill. Okay, he's not so talented with the physicality. So a lot of people talk about talent just being technique and skill, but you also have to be physically talented as well. So I think that unlike some of the other sports where there's so much involved on the physical side, with squash, you can have an opportunity. Like for the youngsters, if they're not so-called gifted with their hands, they can train the body and the physics and the mind, which is crucial. So that, from a coach's point of view, squash is a wonderful opportunity to present to the young girls and boys, because they can have a varied of talents that they can use, and you can mix it in with their development. Everyone's very different. And again, also different sizes of players. You mentioned earlier about Miguel Rodriguez, who's 5'7", and the Colombian cannonball is very quick. Then you've got James Woolstrop, who's 6'5". I'm talking in English terms, in terms of. So again, with squash, in different sports, so probably ice hockey over in Russia or rugby in England, there's certain sizes of players that only can play that sport. Squash, you can be so tall, quite short, and that makes it a great opportunity to bring juniors in. You've got a lot of scope for getting players to play squash.
And maybe last question about the juniors. Could you say some parting words to our juniors and their parents? Also, maybe how can parents support the children while playing squash?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for the juniors, to watch the professional game is a fantastic inspiration, and I'd encourage all of the juniors to watch Squash TV and to watch the professional players, the men and the women, because at the end of the day, they're the heroes. Also to very much, to respect and enjoy the coaches. Hopefully the coaches will also be respectful to the juniors, and the parents to be, excited that they're excited about this new sport that's in Russia. It's squash is quite an old sport within England and Commonwealth countries, but it's a very new sport in Russia. And that is an exciting part to be part of, the boom, for these kids to choose a different sport outside of soccer and athletics and all the different mainstream sports. And I think, and also joking aside, in the wintertime in your country, it's quite nice to be indoors in a heated area running around rather than outdoors running. Or
That's true. That's true. We cannot miss the pandemic situation. Last 2 years were really tough for everyone. And I have found the research from one scientist from Canada. I hope I could say that was a British scientist, but no, he's a Canadian. He has done research, and they have proved that while the pandemic, people had to wear these face masks, and this was the cause of named face blindness. So people cannot recognize each other with masks, without masks. We don't believe it, really. So we want to test if you can recognize your friends and squash stars just watching them playing in a squash mask. And this will be a small competition with Alexander. So you will compete each other. Who knows more squash stars here? And let's watch the first video fragment. So who is on the court? Who is playing? Let Sasha, your...
My answer will be Cameron Pilley.
Unfortunately, it's not Cameron Pilley. Joey?
It's the mad Italian stallion, Davide Bianchetti.
Yes, right. That's Davide Bianchetti. He's really 4 or 5 times Italian champion. So really great player. I remember still him playing on PSA. That was not yet PSA Squash TV, no?
He was on there. I'll tell you an interesting fact about Davide. He's the most fined player on the PSA tour ever.
Oh. That's unbelievable. So the score is 1-0. Joey leads 1-0. And we are. Let's watch the second video shoot. So, who is playing on the second video, Joey?
A good old friend of mine, El Toro, Borja Golan.
Yes, that's right. Sasha got it also right, and we will mention that Borja is preparing to attend the Manchester Open next week.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. I mean, he's the greatest Spanish player ever, and he's still playing now and in fantastic shape. His track record is unbelievable. I managed to play him a good few times. And yeah, fantastic for the game. And the good news is as well that he is going to have his own academy in Santiago, where he's from, junior academy for junior players and pros. So he's putting all his efforts into that after he retires, which will be soon, sadly, but he'll still be heavily involved in developing the game.
Okay, we will wish Borja Golan good luck during the next tournament. And let's watch the last video of this small competition. So, Joy, how do you think who was on the third video?
I was really, there's a few flashes of some people that I might know, but I honestly, I apologize if I couldn't work it out at all. I didn't even know which one I was meant to be looking at. I'm joking. I have to hold my hands up. I'm not sure.
So Alexander knows the answer.
I will name Valery Fedoruk and Vladislav Titov. That the two players from Moscow Heat.
Very easy to pronounce.
Yes, very easy to guess. Yes, Vladislav Titov is a Russian champion, and Valery Fedoruk is a Ukrainian champion.
Wow.
Yes. So, and they were playing in the finals, the final match during the Moscow Heat tournament.
The level was nice, so I wasn't sure, if it was maybe a bit of a trick situation, but it was a very good level of squash for those guys.
Yes.
So if you have time, you can open our YouTube channel and watch the final of the tournament just for
enjoy
45
Alex.
minutes. And enjoy it.
Yes, enjoy Russian commentating. I will try to change the subject as smooth as possible, but it's really impossible to do it right now. So I want to talk about Squash Skills. Squash Skills website, which is helping people to improve their squash. And I have seen that you have made a few videos. I have tried one of them. Yes, true. That's true. So the question is, when you're working with Squash Skills, who gives ideas for the next video? You or Jetro of Peter Nicole?
Me. But we were doing a bit of a different one compared to some of the other videos that are out there. Obviously, it's a fantastic learning platform, Squash Skills, and there's a lot of great coaches and players that have given info, but it was just nice to have me kind of guiding, and Peter Creed was demonstrating really, really nicely and well. I know him again for a long time now, but it was, I'd have an idea in my head before we filmed, but we were able to do all that filming very quickly in probably a couple of hours for each episode, which was pretty awesome. So I really enjoy doing that, and it's been the first time that I've done that side of things in terms of the presenting as well as the coaching, and I really enjoyed it because I definitely enjoy that side of the sport, obviously, and I'm going to do some more videos, but it was also to educate people about the history of the sport. So, you know, going to you guys with it, you being such a new country into the game, it's very, very, very important for everyone that's involved in squash in Russia to know the history of the sport. And this is very important for the juniors as well, for the young kids that are playing. I feel that any junior that looks into the history and reads the history of the sport that they're looking to do, and knows all the heroes and knows all the past champions and legends of the game of whatever sport they're looking into, it shows that that particular junior has got something a bit special and that they might succeed.
And do you consider starting a coaching career as a full-time coach?
I'm going to be doing some camps. I will be doing some camps. I'm going to be linking up with a few people. I've been waiting for a few years because I've been quite busy with my life with a young family and everything, but I'm looking to do some camps where we'll travel. We'll travel to different countries and do a week, 2 weeks, whatever it may be, long weekends. The way we do it is obviously I have a huge amount of knowledge from my father. I'm so lucky to have somebody like him that I speak to every day and learn so much from him anyway. But also to bring fun to it as well for the juniors, for the adults. So a nice social bit of a social side, and also learning and training hard, which I love. So I'm definitely going to be looking at doing camps moving forward and targeting it for juniors and for adults. So anyone's welcome.
Yes,
maybe one day it will be in Russia.
Yes.
My mother used to be she's passed away now sadly, but she was a very famous runner and she competed in Russia. She went and ran in Russia a lot in the 1950s. And I've never been, and my father's never been either. So I'd love to go. I want to see the history and the buildings and the beautiful cities, and maybe a bit of vodka as well.
So maybe next year.
Yes, next year, St. Petersburg and vodka.
Yes,
but not with juniors. Let's have our last part. The questions from the people who are watching us. So our friends from Krasnoyarsk ask you, you have visited a lot of squash clubs. Which of them is the best? What did you like the most in the club?
It's a great question. It's a really, really, really good question. I'm very into the modern clubs. In England, there's a lot of the older clubs, which are, I mean, the famous kind of squash club in England is the Pontefract Squash Club is a very famous club, but there were amazing clubs in London that got closed, like Lamb's Club, which had a lot of history. But I really love the modern clubs. And again, just going back to the way things are built now, the facilities, you know, something that's colourful, got lots of light and good open space for the juniors. It brings a positive presence, and this is very important. It sounds very simple, but it's very important. The older clubs around the world, which were built a long time ago, have a very claustrophobic atmosphere. The juniors will experience something like that if they play the British Junior Open up in Aberdale, which is a fantastically historic club, but it's very kind of tight and a bit claustrophobic. So with the clubs, when I remember when I was starting out squash playing, I had this perception of how I'd have my squash club if I ever had a squash club. And the open plan area with the courts and the bar area, I would definitely incorporate a gym, but I would target the gym to be watching the courts. One of the coolest clubs actually I've been to was in Italy, and ironically it was the club where Davide, who was obviously featuring on this broadcast, was playing. And the whole focus of this whole club, the focus was on the squash courts. So all the gyms and the physio rooms, everything was watching the squash, which was amazing. And that's a really great way, obviously, to promote the game as well. But I love the way that some of these clubs have been built around Eastern Europe. I think it's fantastic. I looked in an eco club that was built in Slovenia recently, that was built out of the timber frame structure. And oh my goodness me, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's in Slovenia, and it's a stunning kind of eco club. And then the courts are an interesting one because of all the different materials that you can use. Obviously, the traditional court is the plaster court with a brick plaster rendered that gives you that really lovely feel. But then you have the panel courts as well that can be made, which are easy to put up and cheaper to put in. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want squash courts. But I think it's a must always have a glass back as well. Clubs can be built with just the hard back, and again, the older ones put the glass back so people can see past. And coaching it's so much easier to coach from a glass back court. I'm excited to go and see the National Center in America that was built in Philadelphia just recently, the Spectre Center. That's where we'll have the US Open. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And that's in a converted old armory where they used to have all the ammunitions and stuff in the colonial days. So going back to people building clubs, if there's disused buildings that can be used, that's amazing as well because it adds cool character. But also obviously brand new buildings going up as well, which is good. But and it's again just kind of reiterating, it's really important at a club to have very good food and healthy juices and proteins and stuff like this. It's an education. That's a big passion for me is the health side of it with sport, and the kids get educated. It's a nice place to go and eat and train and watch. It's a whole social. It's not just to play squash and then leave. You want these people to come in, play squash, have some food, have some alcohol, some drinks, whatever, relax, stay, and then go.
Yes, so we have another question from our new friends from Uzbekistan, Tashkent. They have recently opened a new club. Which tournament do you remember the most? The one you played yourself, and the one you have commented? So that's 2 matches.
Yeah, Canary Wharf is an amazing tournament to play. It's an amazing tournament, it's a consistently amazing tournament. One of the best experiences I ever had was playing the World Championships in Bermuda, which was obviously a beautiful place to go. And the glass court was put on the cliff top overlooking the Atlantic Sea. And they built this huge marquee around it, clear marquee that was used for a Rod Stewart music concert 2 weeks before the squash event. So it was in Bermuda. And it had 6,500 people that came to watch 2 players. So you think you've got 90,000 watching 11 footballers, 11 on each, 22 footballers. To have 6,500 people watching 2 players is pretty unbelievable. And I was playing Nick Matthew in the last 16, and I got introduced onto court, and the atmosphere, my eyes started to kind of water because you walked on and my hair was like this because the atmosphere was unbelievable. And I'll never forget that feeling ever. I was very nervous because of it, but it was an amazing experience. And then from a commentary point of view, New York is always a nice one to go to, but for me, where I've been the most impressed in more recent years has been the French tournament in Nantes. I've never experienced actually anything like it. Those promoters and the people involved with that tournament are unbelievable. They filled the seats with all non-squash playing people from the town, which is what we want. Every night they sold tickets, sold out everywhere, and they changed the venue every year around the city, which is just brilliant. So we played in the old Opera House one year, in the castle the next year. So again, any of you wanting to go and watch a tournament when it's back on, I would definitely recommend to go to France particularly. because it was very special, very, very special. But I've been lucky enough to have a lot of experiences in a lot of different places around the world. And the beauty about our game that we all love is that we can put a squash court anywhere. You know, we could put it in one of the famous squares in Moscow or St. Petersburg or wherever it may be in the summertime. I don't know. You can do it anywhere, which is great.
Yeah. And now the fast questions and fast answers. So Alex will begin.
What's your favorite racket?
The I-110 Barrington racket.
Okay. Who is your favorite player? Man, woman?
My dad.
Sorry?
My dad was my favorite player, but now,
okay.
now I would say the French general, Ramir Shaw.
Is it in something in your work you don't like?
Say that again.
Is it something in your work you don't like?
My commentators.
Oh, okay. And what do you like in your work?
My commentators. No, I love being able to. The next best thing to, as an ex-player, the next best thing to not playing is sitting there talking about it. So I'm very lucky, and I love what I do. I love my job. I love to meet new people and talk about world-class squash. It's a very great. It's a fantastic job. I'm very lucky.
Imagine if you will not play squash, what other sports you will have done?
I played a lot of rugby, and I was doing quite a lot of running as well, athletics. So I had a few choices, and cricket as well, an English sport called cricket. So I had a few opportunities to possibly do a couple of different sports. So I chose squash, but I don't know, it just happened for me.
How do you think has squash a chance to become an Olympic sport?
I mean, it should have been a long time ago. When you watch the Olympics now and you see what sports are involved, it just makes it all a bit silly, really. I was very emotional and very upset for years and years and years about squash not being in the Olympics. But now for me, the sport is growing on a worldwide basis, and I feel that we can do very well without the Olympics. If we get in the Olympics, maybe I should have a word with Mr. Putin and see if he wants a game of squash and get him to become a big fan.
And the last one, how are you going to celebrate World Squash Day?
Doing a ghosting session.
Oh, that's great. So thank you, Joey, for joining us tonight. It was a great pleasure to talk to you today. We hope to see you someday in Russia and maybe to play a few rallies.
Play some very long rallies with me. My reputation was long rallies, so it would be long rallies.
Alex will play.
Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, maybe I will play with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'd love to come and visit your country, of course.